Hi there, my name is Cindy Davis. I'm the Content Director for AV Technology and contributor to SEN. And with me today is Sandi Stambaugh, Senior Vice President of Vendor Management at TD SYNNEX. So welcome, Sandi. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Cindy. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about really a lot of things. We haven't had one of these discussions for a few months, and really a lot has changed. So let's start off by discussing the current market environment.
Yeah, I feel like every time we're together, Cindy, there's a new topic to discuss, right? I feel like the past 3 years have been quite a roller coaster for us. But yeah, the current market environment is pretty interesting. On one hand, for the AV industry specifically, we're having this amazing return to public space. So live events, through the roof. Venues are doing fantastic. We're seeing a ton happen around experiential and kind of these immersive environments. We're seeing things like those sort of almost a mainstream, I might call it, of these cohesive experiences that are using premium technology, like things like projection mapping that you only saw in certain setups in the past. And then also even this topic of virtual production, which is super exciting, very conceptual right now, but we are starting to see some opportunity within certain vertical markets. And then on the flip side, we're seeing within the corporate space, which is the largest within the AV industry, right? The largest vertical. And we're seeing sort of this uncertainty and this manic kind of back and forth of return to office. No, not quite return to office. Maybe it's hybrid. Maybe it's 3 days a week. And then also everyone I know, the topic of office occupancy rates is like normal coffee talk, which is something that we never talked about before, right? So it's just a really super interesting time in the market for AV. On one side, really, really strong, very exciting times. And then the other side, we're sort of in this weird pregnant pause almost, trying to figure out which direction we're going to head within the corporate space, which has been sort of our bread and butter for a long time.
I agree. And interesting, we've got a lot to unpack there, talking about DV, LED, virtual production, return to office. So, actually, let's start with that return to office, because that has been going on for at least a year and a half. There's been a demand by many CEOs to get back into the office, but that's not exactly happening. And despite the economic downturn, employees are still resisting that a bit. And from what I'm hearing, it's because the technologies aren't always as easy as they are to use when you're at home. So talk a little bit about that. What are you seeing through TD SYNNEX, and how are you starting to address that?
Yeah, I think that, what we've seen is the focus was on personal productivity for the past year and a half, right? So it was all about that personal workspace, the desktop monitor and the PC camera and the connectivity of the whole thing, the microphone. You and I just had a conversation about that. That personal workspace has been front and center. And now as these mandates have come down to go back to office, and back to office, it was sort of good enough, right? Because the investment was going into this personal productivity side. I think that, it's not about what I think, but what we've seen is a switch in focus. Now it's about these group environments, but it's not as easy as it used to be. It's not as easy as just filling a bunch of conference rooms with technology and expecting coworkers or employees to just cater to that. Now we've got this personal experience and this personal expectation. And so now it's more human-centric, right? Now we need to cater the technology to the people that are going to be populating these rooms and also consider how they're going to be using those spaces. And so that's the part that I feel like we're sort of in this interesting space. We've seen a number of companies become very innovative in the way that they're going to approach it and almost have multiple test cases within one office building just to see what's going to work and what's not going to work. And then where do we pull technology and then, maybe implement a different approach. And then ultimately with the goal in mind to get to some sort of standardization, right? Especially in enterprise. And so it's a really interesting time At the same time, I have to say I'm sort of a little bit of a geek in that I do love the innovation that we're seeing within some of the spaces, and how they're thinking about work differently. Simplicity is everything. If I'm used to being able to go on and click a button to get on a Zoom call and everything works perfectly at my desktop, I need that same thing to happen on my phone, and I need that same thing to happen when I'm in a conference room, no matter what size the conference room is, or if I'm in a big presentation room, right? Same thing. That's good enough, worked for a number of years, and it just doesn't work the same anymore.
Yep.
And we have seen a lot of advancements. I talked about Zoom a second ago, but I mean, we've got a great partnership with Microsoft. They've made some significant investments and have made a lot of progress to drive simplicity within the space as well. And we've got a number of other platform partners that we work with, but that again is a difference in the way that our integrators are really approaching the space now. It's not about starting with the hardware and then backfilling whatever platform. Now it's starting truly with that kind of assessment of work. What are we trying to accomplish here? What's the best platform for that? Is it multi-platform? And if so, how do we make that simple, right? So there's just a lot more to consider during this. On the good side, that means that these end customers need integrators. They, it's not about just going out and pointing and clicking and buying some technology and sticking it in a room. It's good enough. They really need someone who understands and what that looks like and how to make it simple. We don't sell to end users at all, but we work really, really closely with our integrators from a design perspective, and then introducing other technologies, helping with training and that type of thing. And so we are definitely exposed to the challenges that they're going through on a day-to-day basis to try to support this.
So you also mentioned virtual production, and I'm kind of interested in hearing your perspective on that, because that really comes from the broadcast and cinema areas, and now we're hearing about it being implemented in corporate spaces. So what are you seeing and hearing with regard to the virtual production?
There's production, there's the virtual production side. So virtual production is pretty exciting, specifically around the DV/LED space and what we're seeing with some of the camera technology and that type of thing. Really cool stuff. Lots of areas where folks can cut expenses, right, and leverage technology in a way that is exciting for all of us. On the flip side, we are seeing also opportunities within smaller, just straight production studios. I talked about higher ed, but also in K-12 and other spaces also. So I think video just as a category has become even more important in almost every vertical market. So it's pretty, that's again, one of those areas that's pretty exciting for, our AV integrators.
I agree. And I don't think the iPhone's not good enough anymore. I think upping that quality, and I think people really expect that higher level of quality now. So that's going to be an interesting one to see play out. So something else that's been catching a lot of buzz lately is around AI.
It is the talk of the town, right? So InfoComm, everyone was talking about AI and really more the excitement around what was possible. I do think, you and I were kind of chatting about this, but the fact that, AI is not a smart device. There are amazing advances that have been made within smart devices, and it is really exciting to see the efficiencies that can be gained through those smart devices. But AI is really even more than that, right? It's machine learning, it's expansion, it's adding support to us as we're kind of going through our day-to-day, whether that day-to-day is a meeting or a work environment or a manufacturing environment, right? So the fact that we can leverage AI to help support our day-to-day practices within the work world is pretty cool. And the fact that it's going to be as important as we all feel like it will be within the meeting space just kind of adds to that. At TD SYNNEX, we've actually got a dedicated team. It is not me. I am not the expert in AI, but we have a dedicated team focused on the advancements in AI and IoT and sort of machine learning and all of these sort of kind of emerging technologies. And then they work with us to support our partners within the space. And again, I think it's pretty cool stuff. It's a little, it makes my head kind of blow up a little bit as I'm talking through, what's the art of possible, I guess. But it's really exciting. Just sheer number of meetings that we're having to be in on a day-to-day basis. And when we're, when we see opportunities to leverage AI to provide information from a meeting, for instance, meetings that we're not able to attend, but being able to leverage some of the data that's out there through AI to help us become smarter and more efficient in our day-to-day practice. It's pretty cool.
That would be really great for me. Can you hurry up with that one?
Yeah.
Great. So let's move on to the evolving services requirements. Assessment, deployment, and ongoing managed services. What's going on in that space?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I mean, I think that what we've seen is more services requirements specific to these spaces. Now, again, we're talking sort of two different worlds, right? So there's the really sort of advanced next level technology that exists within some of these immersive, deployments and that type of thing, venues and, live events and that type of thing. And then there's also on the flip side, you've got sort of the complexity that is the corporate space right now. Both of those require services, right? Both of them do. And that's where, again, our integrators win. And so being able to go in and handle, I'll talk corporate for a second, but come in and complete that work assessment, help deliver those proof of concepts, help with the development, the professional development, the implementation, the monitoring of the use of the space, and then be able to help their end customers expand beyond that. That's really important, and that hands-on approach is a little bit different than we've seen historically, right? Additionally, the services that we've seen that have been required around not just the assessment, deployment, and then expansion, but also redesign. So the redesign process along that as well has been really important, and another service that we've seen added. Other things like, we've seen some crazy stuff within supply chain that have caused, some challenges with some of our integrators. They've had to take a new look at cash flow and, what does this look like with even things like commissioning dates and how does that impact us with warranties and the ability to support. So again, all of that services kind of wraps around that. And so our partners have really had to take a different look at that. We've talked for years, Cindy, about subscription-based offering, technology as a service, and OpEx versus CapEx, and that type of thing. But in the current macroeconomic environment, and with some of these other really super interesting trends that we're seeing, we've definitely seen partners begin to leverage that and leverage managed services contracts and then add hardware into those contracts, more so than ever before.
Interesting. So it's kind of like the cash is king approach.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Dollars are being spent around the immediate priority. So whether that's network security or infrastructure or storage, the sort of, or am I going to be in office, or am I going to be remote, or am I going to be hybrid, or what is that going to look like? Security and infrastructure and storage is necessary regardless of where they are, right? So we've seen a lot of dollars being spent there, but then maybe subscription-based approach to some of the visual technologies in some of these conference rooms, right? So yeah, it's super, super interesting. And I'm just thankful to be a part of a company that's been innovative there, right? Like there's been a lot of innovation around the ability to support our partners, whether that's expansion in areas of technology that maybe they don't have expertise in today, where they can leverage our experts, or helping them identify funding streams to help offset the costs of some of the technology, or leveraging TD SYNNEX capital to help finance these projects at the project level where they get full upfront funding. And so it helps them with the cash flow challenges that they're facing because of just the complexity of the current environment.
That's interesting. I have a feeling not a lot of folks know that that's an option through TD SYNNEX is, the funding.
Yeah, and it's beyond, distribution has always sort of been, I guess, legacy distribution is what I should call it, but time and place, the storage of inventory, shipment of inventory, and then financing. But what I'm talking about is a little bit beyond that, right? It's not just terms. It's not just the ability to finance a project or finance a business, but it's beyond that, and being able to get super creative, leaning in with our partners and getting super creative around a specific project to help support them so that they don't get drawn out while they're trying to take care of their customer, but also grow and develop over time. And again, in this environment, it's very prescriptive to the current environment.
Nice. Well, great services, and interesting to see how all those services TD SYNNEX is providing are really evolving, and with what's going on right now and changes to come, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. We don't sell to end customers and we're not integrators, right?
Right.
So, and we won't pretend to be, but at the same time, we are here to help support our integrators and help them be successful. So we're constantly evolving, constantly adding services based on the feedback that they've provided. And then obviously the feedback that our vendors provide to us as well because of their needs in the market.
Let
Sure.
our audience know how they should get in touch.
Sure. Well, I'm Sandi.Stambaugh at tdsynnex.com, but probably a little bit shorter is Visual Solve at tdsynnex.com. That also comes to me and my team. So yeah, no, reach out. Happy to help. We're here to support you.
Great. Well, thank you, Sandi. Really great conversation as usual, and look forward to the next one.
Thanks so much, Cindy. Good talking to you.